The first time Hana shot Han Min Jae, she aimed for his heart, but her hands were shaking too much because she was already in love with him. She wasn't supposed to be. She wasn't even supposed to meet him. She was supposed to kill him. But the night Min Jae walked into the warehouse, looked straight at her gun and whispered, "If you're going to kill me, at least tell me your name." Hana realized something terrifying. She wasn't the hunter anymore. She was the one falling. And in that moment, staring into the eyes of the man she'd been trained to murder, she knew her life would never be the same. If you believe love can start in the most dangerous places, this story will prove it. Stay with me. Hannah Washington was born into two worlds that should never have collided. Her mother was African American, a brilliant artist from Chicago who fell in love with a Korean businessman during an art exhibition in Seoul. They married quickly, had Hana 9 months later, and for 5 beautiful years, they were happy. But when Hana was 5, her father was killed in what the police called a random shooting. Her mother never believed it. She spent years investigating, digging, asking questions no one wanted to answer. And then, when Hana was 8, her mother disappeared. No body, no evidence, just gone. Hana was placed in foster care. She bounced between homes for 3 years, quiet, withdrawn, afraid to get close to anyone. And then Marcus Kim found her. He showed up at her foster home when she was 11, claiming to be her father's younger brother. He had documents, photos, proof of their connection. He promised her a real home, a real family, stability. Hana, desperate for belonging, said yes. She didn't know that Marcus Kim was one of the most dangerous men in the Korean-American underworld. She didn't know that her father had worked for him before he was killed, and she didn't know that Marcus had been the one who ordered the hit. Marcus raised Hana in a mansion in Los Angeles, but it wasn't a home, it was a training ground. By the time she was 12, she knew how to pick locks, disable security systems, and fire a gun with perfect accuracy. By 15, she spoke fluent Korean, Japanese, and Mandarin. By 18, she'd killed her first target, a corrupt businessman who'd stolen money from Marcus's organization. Marcus told her the man deserved it, that he'd hurt innocent people, that this was justice, not murder. And Hana, desperate for Marcus's approval, desperate to believe she wasn't becoming a monster, told herself the same thing. But every person she killed after that chipped away at her soul. She stopped sleeping well, stopped looking at herself in mirrors, started wondering if her mother would be ashamed of the person she'd become. The only light in her life was her younger half-brother, Isaiah. Marcus had remarried when Hana was 13, and his new wife, a kind Korean woman named Min Jae, had given birth to Isaiah a year later. The boy was now 10 years old, sweet, innocent, obsessed with dinosaurs and video games. He called Hana Nuna, and she loved him more than anything in the world. He was the only reason she stayed. The only reason she didn't run. 2 months ago, Marcus called Hana into his office. She'd just returned from a job in San Francisco, exhausted, wanting nothing more than a shower and sleep. But Marcus's expression told her there was no rest coming. He slid a folder across his desk. Inside was a dossier on a man named Han Min Jae, 29 years old, heir to the Han family, one of the most powerful crime syndicates in Seoul. The photos showed a tall, sharp-featured man with cold eyes and an expensive suit. He looked untouchable. Dangerous. "This man has been moving into our territory," Marcus said flatly. "He's been undercutting our prices, stealing our clients, making us look weak. I want him dead." Hana stared at the file. "Why me? You have plenty of people who could do this." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "Because Min Jae is careful, paranoid. He doesn't trust easily, and he certainly doesn't trust men in his world. But a woman? A beautiful, mysterious woman who seems harmless. He won't see you coming." Hana's stomach turned. "And if I say no?" Marcus's eyes went cold. "Then I'll send Isaiah to Seoul instead. And I'll make sure he learns what it means to disappoint me." Hana's blood froze. She looked at Marcus, saw the emptiness in his eyes, and knew he wasn't bluffing. "Fine," she whispered. "I'll do it." 3 weeks later, Hana arrived in Seoul under the identity of Hana Park, a Korean-American graduate student researching transnational organized crime for her thesis. She rented a modest apartment in Gangnam, enrolled in a language exchange program, and started frequenting the places Min Jae was known to visit. High-end restaurants, private clubs, art galleries. She studied him from a distance, learning his routines, his habits, his weaknesses. And what she learned confused her. Min Jae didn't act like the monster Marcus had described. He was reserved, yes, guarded. But he wasn't cruel. She watched him stop to help an elderly woman who dropped her groceries on the street. Watched him hand a wad of cash to a street musician without waiting for applause. Watched him crouch down to pet a stray dog outside a convenience store, whispering something in Korean that made the dog's tail wag. Hana told herself it was an act, that he was performing for the public. But the more she watched, the less convinced she became. One night, she followed him to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. This is it, she thought. This is where I'll see who he really is. She slipped inside through a side entrance, gun hidden under her jacket. Heartbeat thundering in her ears. The warehouse was mostly empty. Just a few scattered crates and dim overhead lights. And there, in the center of the space, stood Min Jae. He wasn't alone. 3 men surrounded him, shouting in rapid Korean. Hana's Korean was fluent, and she understood every word. They were accusing him of stealing from them, threatening his family, demanding payment. Min Jae stood perfectly still, hands in his pockets, face calm. Then he spoke, and his voice was so quiet, Hana almost didn't hear him. I didn't steal from you, your boss did. And if you want to kill someone for it, kill him. Not me. One of the men pulled a gun. Hana's hand instinctively went to her own weapon, but Min Jae didn't move, didn't even blink. Go ahead, he said softly. But know this. If you pull that trigger, your families will be taken care of. Your wives, your children, your parents. I'll make sure they never want for anything, because unlike your boss, I don't punish innocent people for the mistakes of others. The man's hand wavered. Then he lowered the gun. And slowly, one by one, the 3 men walked away. Hana stood frozen in the shadows, heart pounding. She'd just watched a man talk down 3 armed attackers without raising his voice, without threatening them, by offering to protect their families. She must have made a sound, because suddenly Min Jae's head turned. His eyes locked onto hers. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Hana stepped out of the shadows, gun in hand, aimed directly at his chest. Min Jae tilted his head slightly, studying her. He didn't reach for a weapon, didn't call for help. He just looked at her with those dark, unreadable eyes, and said, If you're going to kill me, at least tell me your name. Hana's finger hovered over the trigger. Her hands were shaking. My name doesn't matter. He took a step closer. It does to me. Another step. Why are you here? Her throat was dry. To kill you. Min Jae stopped. A sad smile crossed his face. Then do it. She couldn't. Her hands were trembling too much. Her heart was pounding too hard, and when he reached out slowly, gently pushed the barrel of her gun to the side, and looked her directly in the eyes, she realized something that terrified her. She didn't want him dead. What's your name? He asked again, his voice barely above a whisper. She swallowed hard. Hana. He nodded slowly. I'm Min Jae, and I think we need to talk. They talked for 3 hours. Sitting on the cold concrete floor of that empty warehouse, surrounded by dust and shadows, Hana told him everything. Not because she wanted to, but because he asked the right questions. And because, for the first time in her life, someone was actually listening. She told him about Marcus, about Isaiah, about the impossible choice she'd been given, about the life she never chose but couldn't escape. Min Jae listened without interrupting. When she finally finished, he was quiet for a long time. Then he said, You don't have to go back. Hana laughed bitterly. You don't understand. If I don't kill you, Marcus will kill my brother. Min Jae's jaw tightened. Then let me help you save him. She stared at him. Why would you do that? I just told you I was sent here to murder you. He met her gaze. Because you told me the truth when you could have lied. That takes courage. And I don't believe courage should be punished. Before we go deeper, Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos, because what happens next will change everything. Over the next 4 weeks, Hana and Min Jae met in secret. He showed her his world. Not the violence, not the crime, but the people behind it. The families he protected. The communities he supported. The orphanages and shelters his organization quietly funded. He told her about his father, a brutal man who'd ruled the Han family with fear and violence, until Min Jae took over 5 years ago and changed everything. "I'm not a good man," Min Jae said one evening as they sat on the roof of his private building, looking out over the glittering Seoul skyline. "I've done things I can never undo, hurt people I can never apologize to. But I'm trying to be better than what I was raised to be. And maybe that counts for something." Hana looked at him. Really looked at him. And saw something she hadn't expected. "Hope. It counts for everything," she said quietly. And in that moment, she realized she was falling, not for the idea of him, but for the reality of who he was. Flawed, haunted, trying. 6 weeks after their first meeting, Min Jae did something that shocked her. He proposed. They were sitting in a quiet cafe in Hongdae, away from his guards, away from prying eyes. He reached across the table, took her hand, and said, "Marry me." Hana's breath caught. "What?" "I don't want to waste time dating, Hana. I don't want to wonder if you'll still be here tomorrow. I want to wake up next to you. I want to build a life with you. So marry me." Her heart was racing. "Min Jae, you barely know me. I know enough." His grip on her hand tightened. "I know you're brave. I know you're loyal. I know you were sent here to destroy me, and instead you trusted me with the truth. That's all I need to know." Tears welled in her eyes. "I came here to kill you." He smiled. "And instead, you saved me." The wedding happened 2 weeks later. Small, private, but somehow word got out, and photos of the mysterious Afro Korean woman who'd married the Han heir went viral across Korean social media. People called them a fairy tale, a modern love story. Only Hana knew the truth. The night before the wedding, Marcus called. His voice was cold, emotionless. "You've had your fun, now finish the job. Kill him on your wedding night. Or Isaiah dies tomorrow." Hana's blood turned to ice. "I can't do that." "Then your brother dies. Your choice." The line went dead. Hana sat alone in her hotel room. Hands shaking. Tears streaming down her face. She couldn't kill Min Jae, but she couldn't let Isaiah die. She was trapped. That night, Min Jae found her sitting on the balcony, staring blankly at the city lights. He wrapped a blanket around her shoulders and sat beside her. "Talk to me," he said gently. She turned to him, face wet with tears. "I can't do this. I can't marry you." "Why not?" "Because I'm going to destroy you." He cupped her face in his hands. "Hana, whatever you're carrying, let me carry it with you." And so she told him. About Marcus's call, about the ultimatum, about Isaiah. She waited for him to push her away. To call off the wedding. To hate her. Instead, Min Jae pulled her into his arms and whispered, "Then we save your brother." Together, the wedding went forward. Hana wore white, Min Jae wore black, and when they exchanged vows, when he slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her in front of everyone, Hana felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. But that same night, Min Jae did something she didn't expect. He packed a bag, kissed her forehead, and said, "I'm going to Los Angeles. I'm going to get Isaiah. And I'm going to end this." Hana grabbed his arm. "Marcus will kill you." Min Jae's eyes were hard, determined. "He can try. But I'm not letting him control your life anymore. And I'm not letting him use a child as a weapon." Hana tried calling Marcus. No answer. She tried calling Min Jae. He told her to trust him. And for the first time in her life, Hana did. If you've watched to this extent, comment, "I'm still here," because this story is about to take a turn you won't believe. 4 days later, Min Jae returned to Seoul. He wasn't alone. Isaiah was with him. Her little brother, safe, smiling, running straight into her arms. "Nuna!" he shouted, wrapping his small arms around her neck. Hana sobbed, holding him so tightly she was afraid she'd hurt him. She looked up at Min Jae, eyes wide with disbelief. "How?" Min Jae sat down heavily, exhaustion written all over his face. "I made a deal with Marcus." Her stomach dropped. "What kind of deal?" "I gave him what he wanted. Territory on the West Coast, a percentage of our operations, and a promise that we'd never interfere with his business again." Hana's eyes filled with tears. "You gave up everything." Min Jae shook his head. "I didn't give up everything. I still have you. And that's all that matters." For 8 months, life was perfect. Hana, Min Jae, and Isaiah lived in a beautiful home on the outskirts of Seoul. Isaiah started school. Hana enrolled in university. Min Jae slowly stepped back from the darker parts of his business, focusing instead on legitimate enterprises. They were building something real, something good. And then, one night, everything fell apart. Hana was in the kitchen making dinner when she heard the front door crash open. She spun around to see Marcus standing in the entryway, flanked by 4 armed men. Her heart stopped. "Marcus." He smiled coldly. "Did you really think I'd let you go that easily?" Min Jae appeared from the hallway, positioning himself between Marcus and Hana. "You made a deal." Marcus laughed. "I lied. And now I'm here to collect what's mine." He looked at Hana. "You." "Isaiah." "Everything. If you're still here, comment, "Justice for Hana," because what happens next will leave you speechless. And if you can't stand people who manipulate and control others, subscribe to Afro Korean Love Stories, where we believe real love means freedom, not chains. Min Jae's voice was low, dangerous. "You're not taking them." Marcus raised his gun, pointing it directly at Min Jae's chest. "Then you die." Time seemed to slow. Hana saw Marcus's finger tighten on the trigger, saw Min Jae prepare to lunge. And without thinking, without hesitating, she moved. She threw herself in front of Min Jae just as the gun went off. The bullet hit her in the shoulder. Pain exploded through her body. She collapsed. Min Jae caught her, his face twisted in horror. "Hana." Everything happened fast after that. Min Jae's security team stormed the house. Marcus and his men were subdued. Sirens wailed in the distance. But all Hana could focus on was Min Jae's face above hers, his hands pressing against her wound, his voice breaking as he whispered, "Stay with me. Please. Stay with me." She woke up 2 days later in a hospital room. Min Jae was asleep in a chair beside her bed, his hand wrapped around hers. When she stirred, his eyes flew open. "Hana." Relief flooded his face. She tried to sit up and winced. "Isaiah?" "He's safe. He's with my mother. Marcus is in custody. It's over." Tears slid down her cheeks. "I thought I was going to lose you." Min Jae leaned forward, pressing his forehead against hers. "You saved me." Again. She smiled weakly. "I guess that makes us even." 6 months later, Marcus was sentenced to 25 years in prison for attempted murder, kidnapping, and a long list of other crimes. Hana testified against him. It was the hardest thing she'd ever done, but it was also the most freeing. She and Min Jae adopted Isaiah officially. They moved to a quieter neighborhood. Min Jae stepped away from his family's criminal operations entirely, investing instead in legitimate businesses. And Hana? She went back to school, studying social work, determined to help other kids who'd been trapped the way she had been. One evening, as they sat on their back porch watching Isaiah play in the yard, Min Jae turned to her. Hana looked at him, at the man who'd saved her brother, who'd chosen her over his empire, who'd loved her even when she'd been sent to kill him, not for a single second. He smiled and kissed her forehead. "Good, because I'm never letting you go." If you believe everyone deserves a second chance at love, subscribe to Afro Korean Love Stories. Because the best love stories aren't the ones that start perfectly. They're the ones where 2 broken people choose to heal together. Don't miss our next story. Hit that subscribe button now.